the SPS Digital Learning Hour.
Brought to you by the Digital Learning and Assessment Department.
We're coming to you from a conference room in Central Office, bringing you the latest news in the Springfield Public Schools in regards to technology, along with inspiring interviews from teachers who are using technology in the classroom.
We'll also inform you of the latest updates, practices, and news as it pertains to our district. Whether you are new to using technology in the classroom or are a seasoned vet, we are here to help.
Thanks for joining us today. I am your host, Mike Thomas.
I'm Suzanne Zargis.
In case you missed it, the latest blog post is out, and it's all about digital portfolios, why you should have one, why your students should have one, and how they can be useful. Now, I know in the article I also talked about how when I went through college and I graduated, one of the things I had to do was create a portfolio so that I could get my teaching license. This was in Vermont, and I actually created a digital one. Now, it's not as fancy as what we can do today. It was all Word document based, Word and links and all of that I sort of remember now. But there's so many great programs out there now, and we talk about them in the blog and why you and your students should have them. And I think it's a great tool, and so you need to go check that out. It is on the We Learn page on the MySPS website. It is also, the blogs are posted in Brightspace under blogs, and you find my name, Mike Thomas.
That's it for In Case You Missed It. Coming up next, Hot Take.
For this week's Hot Take, Suzanne and I are going to delve into what we find to be a very interesting topic, one that we definitely don't know enough about, and one that if we were teaching, we would probably be employing a lot more, and that is project-based learning. So, to start us out, what is project-based learning? It is much more of a mindset than a teaching strategy. Instead of dispensing resources and a roadmap for learning, teachers help students blaze a new trail. The learning starts with a central, authentic question and branches out as students gain the knowledge and skills they need to develop a solution, fine-tune their work, and share their project with the community. Some of the things that are very standard and central to good project-based learning is a challenging problem or questions, sustained inquiry, authenticity of purpose, student voice and choice, reflection, critique and revision, public product. So with all of that said, Suzanne, all of these articles we read, I think every single one of them had a different variation of the definition that I just gave.
Right, absolutely. I read several of the articles, Mike, and I'll just go ahead and read you some of the definitions that I found. So one from the Buck Institute for Learning defines project-based learning as a standards-focused, systematic teaching method that engages students in learning knowledge and skills through an extended inquiry process structured around complex, authentic questions and carefully designed products and tasks. They also go on to say that this approach dismisses the idea of doing a project versus project-based learning. And I thought that was very important to note because I know I myself, and I'm assuming many people out there, think of project-based learning simply as doing a project and might be thinking, well, I do that. I do projects with my students. But after reading all of these articles, I understand that there's so much more involved. Another definition I came across was project-based learning is a dynamic classroom approach in which students actively explore real-world problems and challenges and acquire a deeper knowledge. This also includes a great deal of student voice and choice, and in many times solves community problems. And the last one I found was very simple in that it stated that project-based learning improves student motivation and achievement and helps students master skills that are essential for college and career readiness. So I think you have to take all of those together.
Right.
To really understand what it is.
And I think it's very hard because we are so ingrained in our minds, like that first one that you talked about, the difference between a project and project-based learning. Like, I know I did projects with my students, but as for project-based learning, where students are kind of like, I think of like a bus. Like, the students are driving the bus, And like you're guiding them along in what project-based learning is. You're giving them a framework for tools to use. You're saying you can use any of these tools to display your knowledge. You're helping guide their resource. Basically, you're turning into less of a lecturer and more of a guide. I think guide works. Yeah, guide works in that.
I totally go along with that. And I think the key point too is that in addition to the project is it's very much standards based. That was my point of confusion, or a black hole. I could picture many projects, but I wasn't always certain that those projects were standards based. And now I understand that successful, true project-based learning is standards based, and it's challenging and it takes a lot of time, but when it's done right, it's very successful.
And I think that time part is very key too. Like you can't say, all right, for the next 2 weeks, we're going to do project-based learning and expect at the end of those 2 weeks that there's going to be some sort of product that the students can display. That's more of the project mindset, not the project learning mindset. I know that we very much fall into, like, we have our units of study, and these are the units that we're studying. What I really, really like about project-based learning, and I feel like I heard this in a few of the definitions, is that it is multidisciplinary. Multidisciplinary. That's a mouthful. That you go across your subject matters. It's like to have a community-based project. One example that I'm coming up with off the top of my head is you now have a problem with the reservoir water. Something is off with that. You need to make a presentation on how we can improve the water quality of our town. And so that you're going to need to do some sort of testing. So there's your science and your math right there. You're going to need to know how to do that. You're also going to need some public speaking skills and some writing skills and some research skills, because you can't be like, oh, there's a problem, now I'm going to go fix it with whatever I'm guessing.
Right. And I think not disclosing my age, but I do remember many, many years ago where that was the norm in many classrooms, I think, was to do the interdisciplinary units. What I didn't know growing up was that they probably were specifically focusing on these standards that I was completely unaware of. Today, students are well aware of the objectives in every classroom. Mm-hmm. And wouldn't that be just so motivating in itself to have that long list of objectives that they're meeting by doing something fun, have them do the project, and then at the end of the day say, look, these are all the standards that you hit today.
Yeah, and I think making sure that it is standards based is very important. We come from a background in an education system where we have standards. There's like 40 math standards per grade, there's 40 English standards, there's a ton of science standards and social studies standards. So in the end of the year, the idea that a student has completed and understands all those standards is a lot. And I know when I was teaching, I didn't teach this way a lot, but it was what I did more often than not was my standards for today's lesson. We're going to work on fractions. We're going to work on standards NF 3, 4, and 5 for the next 3 days. To help gain our understanding. Then you're going to take a little assessment. We'll see where we're at, if we need to reteach or if we can move on. So a lot of those things were taught in isolation of each other. But I think so much of our world right now and where we're going in the future, there's so many things that are connected together. And I think that's where project-based learning comes in, is it helps with that connection. It helps you be like, I remember those math times. I know we've said this a bunch of times, like, when am I ever going to use algebra? Well, you will use algebra in doing these kind of things. Well, why do I need to learn about the biology of a frog? Well, that helps you understand this, this, and this. And there's just so many different things.
Right. And I think with the project-based learning, you start out with that first need-to-know question that sparks the students' interests, and they're not even thinking about all those other standards that are going to come into play. They're just thinking about that main question: how can we reach that goal? How can we figure out this problem? And as they go along, they're hitting all these different areas. And I have so many different thoughts that I can go on, Mike, because you provided such a great spectrum of articles. But as we're talking about standards, I'm going to key in on the standards-based article that I read. And this one particular teacher who had been teaching for 10 years admits that designing valid and reliable assessments in a project-based learning classroom is a time-consuming process. And he says at least it was for him. It also required significant changes in his practice, but over time, he researched best practices in both standards-based assessment and project-based learning and worked to incorporate them into his classroom. So it's definitely something that you have to probably psych yourself up for and decide that you're going to do it and be dedicated to it. But from everything I've read, it's well worth the time.
Right. And I think that's part of the reasons why we're the technology department. We talk a lot about technology and the things that we're doing. To do a lot of that work, we actually have tools that are readily available to us, whether that's using Yammer or Teams to chat with each other about what we're trying to do. Using OneNote, I just hit the table. Using OneNote to start building resources and building questions and like question stems and hey, this is what we're doing. There's just so many ways that we can collaborate as teachers where while it seemed like this teacher that you're talking about, from what I read in the article, it seemed like he was by himself for a lot of this. And quite frankly, that would make me nervous and I probably wouldn't try as much. But knowing that with the tools that we have in the district now, I can put out a question to all teachers. Or I could have a group of 5th grade teachers, if I'm teaching 5th grade, or if I'm teaching 8th grade, a group of teachers that I can talk to and communicate with to help develop these things for not just my classroom, but if we're all working together on it, then that's a lot of students that we are affecting with project-based learning because we're collaborating. And I think that we're no longer in these silos in our classroom. We are literally at the feet of the entire district, and dare I even say the entire world, because we can pull in experts. So that was the first part of our conversation all about project-based learning. Listen in over the next couple of weeks as we come closer to the end of the school year and we spend time really delving deep into project-based learning. I encourage you to come back, hear the next couple weeks worth of episodes after this. So coming up next is our interview of the week. This week's interview of the week comes from Liberty Elementary School with Rachel Chouinard and Nina Barker. Enjoy this conversation because I had a lot of fun when I was recording it, because it's one of the rare times where I've recorded an interview with two people at the same time, and you can really hear how well they work together.
Chouinard. We're at Liberty Elementary. I taught here for 5 years. I've been teaching 3rd grade for 5 years.
And I'm Nina Barker. I've been teaching at Liberty my whole time in Springfield for 14 years. 5 years has been with Rachel, her and I as a team.
So in 3rd grade and using technology in the classroom, what were some of those first things that, well, you've been teaching a little longer. What were some of those first things that you experimented with technology?
Great question. So I think the overhead was the biggest piece of technology that we had that we loved, putting the transparencies into the Xerox machine and putting whatever you needed from a book onto a transparency. Since then, I think one of my favorite things is the Elmo. That's what we use a lot. After that, most recently is using the computers, the laptops.
Which is like awesome. So funny though, because I don't even remember having to use a transparency or ever putting them into a copy or ever student teaching with them. But then the Elmo was great at first, but I just remember hooking my computer up to the projector until I got my smart board. And I love the smart board, all the interactive things you can do with it. Now delving into every app we have on the laptops.
With starting out with the Elmo, not a lot of people have actually talked about that as one of the things that they really like. What is it that you really like about the Elmos?
Well, you mean with the document camera being Yammer, right?
Yes.
So just that we can show and model instruction right there with the students. So if it is a worksheet that's not something we can do on the computer, they can see everything. Even with reading picture books, I like them being able to see word for word, or just doing a read aloud with the chapter book. They like to follow along.
Sometimes when we don't want the children to be walking around the room for whatever reason that day, we might take a picture of what a child has done. We use it in many, many different ways. If you don't have a Xerox machine that day because it's broken, we can quickly put something underneath the Elmo for the kids to work on and put a transparency on top of that and actually take a piece of and write it. So,
and when technology such as the laptops or smartboard might fail, which it does, unfortunately, that's another option for us to use.
You've used the smartboards. You've used the Elmo. With the smartboards, the interactive part I heard you mention. What kind of interactive things have you done with third graders?
So I have used a lot of interactive games on Top Marks, and I've used the other Shepherd Software is another website for games that I've used in the past. I've used Go Noodle, interactive wise, Smart
Notebook.
Smart Notebook, yeah, and how you can move the.
Recently, we did we completed a story, Balto in Togo, and
use it for opinion.
We wanted them to really understand what opinion was.
So we moved reasons into the right column. So just having the opportunity to have the students come up and move it, or the interactive part too, with when it comes to just having them draw on the smart board, or so they can interact more with the lesson.
So you mentioned Go Noodle and the interactive. Do you find with third graders that there needs to be a lot of physical activity while they're learning too, and it seems to really help them?
Maybe touching things. So whether it be like manipulatives that are not computer based or computer based, coming up and moving things, they definitely need that tech.
Sticks with them more.
Nice. When we were talking before we started, you guys had mentioned one of the ways that you guys collaborate together. Can you delve into that a little bit for us?
Lesson plans are done in collaboration. Everything that I'm doing in my classroom, Rachel's doing in hers. Obviously, we teach differently, but it's the same information. We will plan using Office 365
sometimes, but we are really used to using Google. So when Springfield got Office 365, we got used to it. However, we're really used to Hangouts on Google. Every second of our day, whether it be just like literally waking up or when we are not together, we're always sending a message on Google Hangouts asking, what do you think about this? How do I word this question? What can I do for this? Or it'll be a website we thought of in the middle of the night, and we share that out. And once one of us has learned of a new tool, we share it with each other.
So as far as in the classroom, we're using OneNote an awful lot. And we're liking that more and more because it gives the kids the opportunities to work with other children in the building.
Same way we have been used to collaborating together on Google.
So we're getting them to work together with somebody that's in the next room, which is great. One of the activities that we've done most recently was having them do the game. Well, the activity.
It's kind of a game.
Yeah, making words. And I'm sure our audience knows what making words is, but they have a unknown word, and the children have the letters in front of them that would make up that word, but they're mixed together. They didn't form the word yet, so they have to kind of figure out what that word is. And as a team with another set of children, they will go on to OneNote
in the collaboration space,
and they will start using
those
letters to make 2-letter words, 3-letter words, 4-letter words. And they're seeing not just what the people are next to them, but they're seeing what other people in other groups. So I feel like they're getting a deeper...
Yeah. Since it's between your classroom and my classroom, a student in my room might think, wow, someone already made that word. Yeah, well, that's your team. And It's great. So at first, we created our OneNote notebook over the summer, but 4 teams happened to be able to pre-populate all the kids' names into it. So we put every kid in one by one with both classrooms, which does take some time, but it was worth it. Like, the time spent on making that was definitely worth it for each of our classrooms to see how, so if I want to pull a paper from her classroom, I can show my kids that, or the kids can see how another student works. It's not right next to them.
So when OneNote is like having a notebook, but it's digital.
Yes.
Rachel and I have a notebook together. All the kids are in one
For the whole third grade.
Since then, we have separated them because we learned that you make a mistake and you're fixing 50. You got to fix that mistake 50 times. So we've learned that there are other ways. So we share everything though together. When her kids are writing something and I love it, I might share it with my students so they can see what's happening in the next room.
And it's great because in the past, they'll be like, oh, I can't do this. That's not third grade work. It's like, oh, really? Well, look at another third grader right here is doing this. And they wouldn't even think that.
And then the opposite. If a child is doing work that we know is not up to par, we might go into the other classroom so they don't know it's
who's writing or what it sounds like.
They won't see it. They won't know it's there. It won't embarrass that child. And they will help fix that work. Together as a whole classroom, we'll look at it piece by piece and they'll help fix some mistakes or make it better. And then those kinds of activity suggestions can be suggested to that child, and they none the wiser knowing who it was.
Are there anything else that you guys are using that would pretty awesome?
Actually, you made that Ed puzzle, which is really cool. So we can talk about that, but we also PowerPoint, but not Office mix, but making tutorial videos or having kids make videos using PowerPoint for a how-to is the next big thing we're working on.
Yes, and their children are really excited about it. They have to make 1 or 2 slides, something simple, and then they explain their slide as they're drawing on that slide. So if they're teaching in our class, we're doing fractions.
So eventually, we just talked about this idea, so it's not as firm as OneNote. Nina sent me a video through Hangouts this weekend, or was this last weekend? It was recently, and it was a snow day. I was really excited because when she sent it to me, I was like, oh, this is her voice. So we're just going to have the kids do what she had done and have them pick a topic at the end, maybe sooner, at the end of the year somehow, about math. And we're going to put them onto a Padlet so that every kid can collaborate onto the link and where they can see each other's videos between both classrooms.
So it'll just be voice. It
won't be their faces. So it's not like a...
I'll be excited to see that and hear about that and share hear how it's gone. We're middle of February now, or just about. We're a few months away from I'm trying not to say the word, but
D-Day.
You know what I'm talking about. So what are some of the things that you've done to help prepare third graders? Because this will be the first year that they're taking it on. And are you guys doing it online, or are they doing it on paper?
They are doing it online.
We understand they're doing it online.
Yes.
So again, with OneNote, you can upload a PDF onto OneNote. Our biggest thing about the MCAS was taking it on the computer and doing all the thinking that we teach them in the white space. Mm-hmm. They don't have that ability to do that on there, or they just won't because they're 8 and 9 years old. So we've been taking all our
text and putting them into a PDF and putting them onto OneNote.
And on OneNote, you can actually draw on the screens, and it stays there. It doesn't disappear, which we found in somewhere.
ANET does that.
ANET
will do that, and even with the MCAS practice, like if you were to go out to the Pearson practice sites, they actually do that too, where when you go from slide A, which has question 1 and 2 on it, to slide B, or slide 2, which has question 2 and 3 on it, like their notes disappear. So
it disappears. And so this way, if they're underlining something they want to remember, because writing on a screen is difficult. Mm-hmm. So we still teach them to put things on paper. However, it's so much more simple if they wrote paragraph 5 and they go to paragraph 5 and they see that they underlined that sentence. So we've been teaching them to annotate on the OneNote. So I'm not sure what we're trying to get them to really understand is they have to not remember everything, but they definitely have to touch everything. They have to, in order to remember, by underlining and thinking twice about that and rereading, and they show proof in OneNote that they're doing that. So that's where we're going.
And I just think being in the OneNote, having all of our PDFs there is just really helpful for differentiation as well. Because in the past, we put the PDFs on one bright space where they can't draw on it. So the drawing is awesome for annotating. And some of the students I have are a little bit lower. So like I know that one's going to have a read to, and I can't read everything to that student. I'm only one teacher in this room. So I've showed him how to use the Immersive Reader, and he just pushes the words and he can have his headphones on. And that's been really helpful when I can't have someone read the text to him. And then I like how we've been using it for all their open responses. Just looking at them, because I'm seeing my own responses over there, I'm thinking like how we spoke before about real-time feedback, which has been, I guess, harder in the past to meet with every single student to give them that feedback. But now they're getting what we talked about earlier, the instant gratification, whether or not it's the score, but they are taking more responsibility and ownership of their learning because they want to improve.
And they don't have to rewrite it.
Yes, where in the past they'd have the eraser and they'd get frustrated. Now it's they know how to copy and paste for a second copy, or they can just add in color, where we've talked about, in writing we said, put your dialogue in green, or whatever skill we're working on. We've tried to have them be different colors of font so we can check off what we've taught and if they understood it.
That's just like with the learning tools. Like if you're looking for a specific language, like I want to see your nouns, adjectives.
Yes, and they love that.
Verbs. I'm trying to remember. Those are the three.
And they have the syllables that break it down.
Yeah, so that helps too. And my final question is always a fun one, because you guys have both been in the district for long enough now that you don't have to be a part of the new hire orientation where they sent all the new hires have to sit in front and listen to people talk and talk and talk all day long about the entire district. If you had a chance to stand up in front of them and offer a piece of advice, a piece of wisdom, what would that be? And it doesn't have to be technology based either. So
I'd probably say just take it one step at a time, and you're going to get a lot of information, even just every day. Just pick and choose what you think is best for the kids.
Yeah, don't take too much on. Decide that you're going to work on using more manipulatives in math, or
make small goals, because you'll feel accomplished and just feel better all around with the kids.
All right. Well, this has been a great time to chat, and I thank you for allowing me to be in your room.
Thank you for having us.
So again, this week we spoke with teachers from Liberty, Rachel Chouinard and Nina Barker. Suzanne, I enjoyed my time talking with them in their very hot classroom. And so I learned a lot about how they operate as third grade, because they are not departmentalized, but they really truly seem to work together.
I loved it. I loved hearing about the past technology that was used, the old overhead projectors, and leading into the Elmo and smartboard, and then going on to the laptops. How she's using OneNote and Office 365, just in every way. It was very inspiring to see how they use the tools available to them to deliver the best instruction possible.
Yes. And I really like the fact that with them being two separate classrooms where they don't switch students, that they really truly do collaborate together. They, as they put it, if I have an idea at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm not FaceTiming, but whatever Google's version of FaceTiming is, I'm doing that. And they're sharing, they started out using Google Documents, and they've now started to move towards some of the Microsoft stuff because it's a lot easier for them to use. Just kind of that, despite the difference in how long that they've been teaching in the district, they really have bonded well, I guess. When you think about a small school like that, there are two teachers who really seem to really get along too. I felt like a lot of times when I was listening to them talk, they were finishing each other's sentences, which I thought, that's how you know you've got a really good team that you're working with. the fact that you're finishing each other's sentences, you're talking on the weekends to each other, like, not, I'm sending an email on Friday, I'm not checking my email again until Monday morning type thing.
Right, and that says it all, right? That's the best part about teaching, is when you love what you do, and everything you do is for the benefit of the students. So every second of every day, you're thinking about, oh, how can I use this in my classroom? Oh, this would be awesome for this lesson. And when you've got a peer that you're working with, it just multiplies. Mm-hmm. So the energy level is very high, very inspiring. I would love to go visit their classroom.
Again, we just thank the both of them for their time, and if we made a mistake on your name, we do say sorry. We really do try, but sometimes we get our vowels and consonants all mixed up, because a lot of times when we record these podcasts, they are on Friday afternoon.
Maybe Immersive Reader would be able to help us with that, Mike.
Immersive Reader, there we go. There's our OneNote tool. No. So again, we want to thank you guys for listening to us and enjoying this conversation. We hope that you continue in our conversation on project-based learning, as we'll talk about that over the next few weeks. If you listen to us using iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play, wherever you listen to us, leave us some feedback, leave us some comments. We'd love to hear from you. We know that you're out there listening somewhere, whether it's in your car or in your classroom. And so, please let us know. If you know of somebody who we should interview, let us know. We love going out to schools and interviewing. I was just doing that today. We also are very interested in trying to create training videos for teachers on how to integrate technology into their classroom through using the Yammer model, which is substitution, modification, augmentation, redefinition. Let us know. Give us feedback if you know of somebody or would like to be a part of these Yammer videos, so you can help teachers all across the district learn how to use technology effectively in their classroom. We'd love to meet and talk with you about it. But as for today, I am Mike Thomas.
I'm Suzanne Zargis.
And we'll see you next week.